Okay, you take your microphones to be able to react and answer.
Hello.
C'est pas grave. It doesn't matter. Okay, here we are. Ok, bienvenue à tous ceux qui se sont levés tôt ce matin pour participer à cette table ronde et également pour la regarder, pour en apprécier le plateau. Cette table ronde, comme je l'ai dit, va être faite en anglais, donc ceux qui ont besoin d'une traduction peuvent aller chercher un petit casque pour avoir la traduction simultanée juste à côté. So welcome everyone. I'm very glad to have you here to discuss about an important subject. Let me just present you quickly Mauro Colagreco, that no one presents, who is also the godfather of this edition of the Chef Word Summit. Mrs. Shiva Vandana, coming from India. She directs a foundation for research in science and technologies and natural resources. Mr. Lionel Astruc, who's written a lot of books, he's an expert of ecology transition in France. Mr. Yoshihiro Narizawa, who is a chef who some of you have seen him also reacting yesterday in one of the first conferences. And I'm very glad also to welcome Mrs. Narda Lepes. She's coming from Argentina. And she's made a strong career in the television in Argentina, has published a lot of books, and she pledges for a better how would I say, how to better feed the kids. So she's very, very keen of having this kids feeding. So it's a very cosmopolitan plateau, as you can see here, and therefore it's going to be an English conference. And this is at least what we could hope, talking about such an important issue, because the issue we're going to talk about has an impact on the whole planet. And it's quite normal that we have people coming from all over the world to discuss it. And the climate change has consequences in all areas of today's life. And it has to do with, obviously, population movements, but also agriculture. Also product seasonality, and therefore the consumption habits are impacted by these climate changes. And how to fight it, or if it's too late to fight, how to go along with this change, what type of issues, what type of solutions, and what degree of urgency do we see in doing so. And this is precisely the type of issues we're going to talk about this morning. And to start, I would like to give the word to Mr. Astruc. And so Mr. Astruc has written about 17 books on the subject. He's a specialist. He's written a book with Mrs. Shiva Vandana, also with Nicolas Hulot, who is our former minister in France of ecology. And the first question would be, what is climate change? Everyone talks about it, but what is exactly, how does this impact our day-to-day life?
A very recent report of the United Nations said that because of climate change, in about 40 years, our main problem will be to find food and water. So this is how it impacts us. And then I think the chiefs have a very important role to play in the transition. And this role is a triple role. The first one is that they need to teach us how to reduce the animal proteins in our food. This is the first thing. This is very, very important. The second one is they can help agroecology, not only organic. Well, if they go organic, it's really nice. But then if they go for agroecology, it's really better. It's the second thing. And the third thing is that I think they should go in the popular districts, the poor districts, and talk with people to learn them how to cook organic without spending more money. So I can explain all those things after if you want.
Okay, thank you for this introduction. Mrs. Shiva Vandana, there is a big role of education. Our kids need to be educated and to be warned to some extent about what is happening. How would you see this, and how would you describe the type of role we have as adults to educate our kids in the world? It's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think the first thing our children need to know is the basic laws of nature. Basic ecological laws that we learned in grade 3 and 4 and have been messed up in the current idea. So I would actually not call this session climate impact on the planet. I would call it anthropogenic impact of a particular kind of economy in the hands now of 1% people on the planet's climate systems and all of the people, including the 99% and the future generations. That is why, as we talk, people in England are having what they call an extinction rebellion. They're at the Queen's Gate just now, saying you are pushing species to extinction. You are pushing us to extinction as a species, and this issues of extinction is very linked to the issue of not the impact of climate change, but the same processes that cause climate change. Climate change is a result of 200 years of extracting fossil fuels from underground. Till that time, we did everything from the food we eat, the fibers we wear, on the basis of what the earth gives above ground in biodiversity. Fossil fuels have been created by plants and animal life and sea life turned into fossilized deposits over 600 million years. Every year, we are burning out 2 million years worth. Burning it up. That is what's building the pollution in the atmosphere. And that pollution in the atmosphere is the greenhouse gases. There are 3 kinds of greenhouse gases. First, directly carbon dioxide from the burning of fossil fuels in excess to the planet's ability to reabsorb. The planet has a brilliant ability to reabsorb, which is why when a scientist called James Lovelock wanted to understand how the temperature stays within a certain amount and how the planetary climate systems are worked out, he, as a NASA scientist, realized that the Earth is a self-regulating living organism. And he called her Gaia. This is called the Gaia hypothesis. So, just like a body has the capacity to regulate its temperature, when things get bad, we get fever. The Earth has fever.
The Earth has fever.
When we eat normal, good food, healthy food, our body's metabolic systems do not allow the creation of what's now the epidemic of diabetes. It's a metabolic disorder. It's not a problem of sugar. It's a problem of the metabolism having collapsed. So there's climate change is a metabolic disorder of the planet, induced by a fossil fuel civilization and greed. But it isn't just the direct burning of fossil fuels, which is where the energy alternative comes into place. It's the agriculture and food part. So since agriculture and food was being left out of the climate discussions, when the climate negotiations were happening in Copenhagen in 2009, I wrote this book called Soil, Not Oil, articulating how much of a contribution comes from industrial agriculture and industrial food systems to greenhouse gas emissions. This is from the IPCC data, it's just that I've reflected the food part of it. So agriculture production directly is about 15%. Where does that come from? not just the giant mechanization you see in Argentina, you see in America, you see in Brazil, but the chemical fertilizers, which are fossil fuel based. In Hitler's Germany, they used to make ammunitions by burning fossil fuels at high temperature to fix atmospheric nitrogen to make explosives. Then they realized, oh, we can turn this into chemical fertilizers, and all nitrogen fertilizers are made in the same process that makes explosives. That is why around the world you hear about fertilizer bombs. In Afghanistan, in Oslo, in Delhi, everywhere fertilizer bombs. Now, 1 kilogram of nitrogen fertilizer uses 2 liters of diesel. And the gas it emits is nitrous oxide, which is 300 times more deadly than carbon dioxide for destabilizing the climate, which is why the organic option becomes inevitable to move to climate friendly. But let me finish the story, because otherwise, you know, it doesn't, what our children should be learning doesn't get completed. Now, we were growing food everywhere. Our fields are abandoned everywhere. Small farmers are destroyed everywhere. And there's an invasion into the forest lands of Argentina, into the Amazon, into the rainforests of Indonesia and Malaysia, which will be destroyed by 2030 for soya and oil. This land use chain was counted as land use chain, but it feeds into the food chain. And that is 18%. Processing, transport, packaging, retail is 20%. And that system is designed for waste, which is 4%. Add it all up, it's between 45 to 50% of all climate change is driven by the same system that's giving us hunger, is giving us disease, and is destroying the planet and causing the 6th mass extinction. The actions against this are the same. It's not that we say, how do we mitigate and how do we adapt? Every action that will mitigate is an action for adaptation. We've worked this out in Navdanya, the movement I have built. The first step is to mitigate climate change, you've got to get rid of 50% of the greenhouse gases. The minute you shift to organic and agroecology, you've got rid of 50% of the problem. But that 50% of the problem doesn't just pull nitrogen oxide and nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, puts it in the soil and turns it into soil fertility. It gives us more and better food. Because all food begins in a farm, in the soil. The most important issue I think we need to be looking at is that without doing the right kind of agriculture, which is getting rid of fossil fuels in our farming, we need to talk of fossil fuel-free farming, not just alternative energy for energy, food without fossil fuels. We should not be eating oil. We are eating oil, as I've written in my book, Soil, Not Oil. We should be eating diversity, and the more diversity we have, the more reversal of climate change we have, the more we regenerate the planet, and the better food you're able to serve on your platter. I want to just mention, we'll turn to it later, I'll have another opportunity in the afternoon. The same industrial agriculture based on fossil fuels and chemicals that gave us climate change is now trying to use climate change as its next opportunity. And so Monsanto, my favorite company, my absolutely favorite company, I should actually be sitting in the Supreme Court today in India because they are challenging our laws that don't allow patenting of seed. But I know you all are important for the future of this planet, and I worked all weekend with my lawyers to ensure our seeds are not patented. But Monsanto has taken ownership of the world's biggest climate data corporation and is trying to privatize climate data so that our public units don't tell us what the weather will be. We have to buy that data. They've bought up the world's biggest soil data corporations so that the farmers don't know their soil. They don't have public systems and public scientists working with soil, but we buy soil data. That instead of farmers, Monsanto is thinking of farming without farmers. That's their language. farming without farmers, a digital agriculture with drones and surveillance machinery. They say, now we'll move to big data. If we first gave you poisons, now we'll give you data. Poisons didn't feed us. Big data, which they call the new oil, will not feed us. Real food, real knowledge, real love, care for the food, care for the planet is what's going to bring us food.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very, very interesting and good introduction. I think you have perfectly set the scene. Now I would turn myself to Mauro Colagreco and say, as a chef processing food, what type of action at one's level can we undertake to contribute to fight against these changes that Ms. Vandana has mentioned?
Yes, my English is not the best, but I will try.
Ou en français?
Yes, I talk in French, better for me. But how Vandana says, really, as a cooker, we have a lot of responsibility about how we choose our food for our restaurants and for the industry in general. The oil agriculture is everywhere. France is one of the biggest one, and we have in my case, particularly in my case, we are lucky to live in a place who have a lot of small farmers and small producers who try to survive to all this oil industry. It's not easy for them. It's not easy for us as a company who try to change the our habits, because petrol are everywhere. So how we contribute at that? I think the way for every chef is to really, first of all, to take conscience. We are a big impact in how we choose our food for our restaurants. The restaurant industry is so big, and we really can make a change. But I worry about that because the change need to be right now. We need to move really fast because we don't have more time for change. And every change we know we take time, but now we don't have any time. We need to react really fast. It's not
now.
just a talk how we make for years and years and years, and now we need really to change the whole methods of the approach of how we
supply
cook.
of food supply to the chefs.
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Narizawa, how would you consider your relationship with your producers in Japan? In other words, instead of asking them what you need, asking them what they can offer at a given point of time for you to cook. Is this something that is a balance in your way of getting your food supply in Japan?
まず大きく2つに分けて話をします。
First of all, I would divide it two different sections to explain about that.
まず一つはシェフとしてです。
One is for the shift.
僕たちシェフはいろんなことを知っています。
Because we, chef, we have a lot of knowledge about that, first of all.
先ほど彼女が言ったように僕たちシェフの口から言いづらいこと恐ろしい現実が食の世界では起きています。
It is true, like she has been well explained, on the reality, there's many horrible things happening right now. It's even difficult and very scary for chef to even express to the public.
もちろんそのモンサントの問題も知っていますし、それから、薬物の投与ですね、豚や牛、鳥へのその薬物、良くない餌であったり、注射であったり、そういった現実も知っています。
Yes, because I highly understand that there is a problem about Monsanto, and I do really understand what's going on. Also, for the food or chemicals being induced for those livestock, the animals that we eat, pig, beef, and chickens and all that, they might be eating not right type of food for themselves. So those two are a problem also.
今こういう場所に、いる僕たち、マウロや、僕たちシェフがどこまで真実を話すかということが問われている。
I think it's about a time that, like Mauro asked, like chef, we all here, and how much that we can actually express what we know, the reality, without being scared.
そしてもう一つはまさに彼女が言った通り、僕は一番のキーワード、この地球、これから未来に対してのキーワードは森だと思っています。
So the second part is like she has mentioned it too. The most crucial word for the future of our life is forest.
彼が言ったように、この地球にとって水と空気というものは欠かせません。で、それを作り出しているのが森です。
So like Astruk has mentioned that the most crucial part of our life is the water and the air. So those two is the most crucial part of our life, and which has been produced from the forest.
毎年今でも地球上から森が減っていってます。
Every year that we're losing forest from this earth.
CO2 の排出量ねを減らすことももちろん大事ですけども、 CO2 をきちんと空気や水に変えていける森というものを、減らないようにしていく、できれば増やしていく、そういった活動を今すぐにでもするべきだと思います。
Instead of focusing reducing the production of CO2, I think we need to focus on how we can generate and create a better air. So the focus is not to reducing the production of CO2, but to create better way of using to have better oxygen.
To absorb it.
本当に彼女、今3人の方が話した通りで、特に亜熱帯地方ですね、の森というのが非常に重要だと思っています。
Yes, just as everybody here on the panel have spoken about, it's very important to focus on, especially for the climate change around the for rainforest areas. Yeah.
Rainforest area.
Yes, that's the places that we need to focus on.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Nada Lepes, you're taking care of ASAGA, which is an association promoting Argentinian gastronomy. And we talked just before this conference, we talked about our responsibility vis-a-vis our kids and children. How can we educate them? What type of channels can we use to educate them in order for them to respect the place where we're all living together?
I think most children already do that, most of them. But hearing a bit of what everybody said here, I think that, for example, what the scientists said, it's hard for the people to relate to that unless they have already a lot of information inside. And that's what we chefs been doing and harvesting for a long time now, because we're in a time when we get to travel a lot. We go to the fields, to the mountains, to the fishing parts where food is produced, and we already seen it. So that give us a privilege that not a lot of people have, that it's to talk to people like them and to get to know them and to get to have their information and to talk to the people that actually does the food. Sometimes in a spectacular way, like around this place, or sometimes in a very harsh way, like where I come from. So I think what we are, we need to be, we are in a position of power since a lot of years, a few years ago, quite a few right now, where we have the public opinion, we have the public eye, political powers try to reach us for a picture or to be near because we are like a hot thing, because cooks are a thing that it's all good news, and we're used to that, to be good news, to be like a safe place for people. And we have their eyes and we have their ears. And I think we cannot have what I call the Miss World syndrome. That I said, what do you want? I want peace in the world. And what do you want? I want every one of us to eat organic food. I come from a place where we are one of the biggest producers of food in the world, and you get to the countryside and people eat only complex carbs and sugar, and they produce food. So it's a long walk from what we think should be the ideal thing and what's happening already. When I hear the UN goals for global goals, and I've seen when they started talking about it until now, everything is going faster and worse. So I think we can have one thing that is the more powerful thing that we can reach, that it's the public opinion. If we can shift a little bit of public opinion, talking straight to people with a straight face, not covering up with sugar, what's happening, and have a call to action that is simple to people, that it's, for example, we can say you have to eat more vegetables and organic, but there's a lot of people that doesn't even have access to vegetables, and they produce real close to them. So first is cook, then it's vegetables and beans, and then it's when you can have that, have it organic. You have layers of information that we have to read, because the key of all of it is the scale. If we keep talking, all of us are privileged people. Either privilege that you have through money, through access, through information, through being part of an elite, that maybe you're not rich, but you live in a rich, maybe the farmers here are not rich, but they have a lot of privilege in the world. You can discuss, because your public has, your customers have culture. So that's a privilege. Culture is a privilege. So I think we have to be really aware of the privileges we have, and to use them to be aware of the scale of things. And there's a word that I learned like 10 years ago that it's hard to put it down, but exponentiality, it's something that we cannot figure it out with a simple mind or with a simple eye. And technology and big data, it became a tool to let a lot of things that we cannot really understand right now, and the common people on the street, they don't understand that big data and that technology, and they don't get what exponentiality is, that is how fast things happen. And what we think now, it's 15 years or 12 years, we all maybe getting it wrong, and it's like 5 and we don't know. Because there are a lot of things happening so fast that we cannot grab or understand. So I think that we need to have a call to action, and we chefs, that we are in a position of power because we have a lot of reach out of maybe TV or the media that comes to us, or the politics that comes to us. And I think we should be really aware of what we say and how we say it, what we show, what pictures do we show. Everything counts, and we need to grab that power in a way that is horizontal. We should talk to each other more and fight together, because I think it's a fight. And I think when I was 10 years ago, I thought I didn't have kids, and I thought the children that I would have, their grandchildren may see the big change. Now I think I will see it. That's how fast.
Okay.
When you get information, how scary things are. He mentioned the word scary. She mentions the word scary. He mentioned the word scary. And he mentioned transition, which is already scary, because that's a thing that you got to see it. This is a transition. This is going to happen.
To go from one state to the other, which is definition. We all understand, thank you, that wishful thinking is not enough. Wishful thinking is, peace and love. We need to go beyond that. I would like to give the word to Lionel Astruc to react on this. And how can we're doing here at our modest level, how can we multiplicate and give this exponential effect of counterattack against these problems?
I'm really happy about what Narda is explaining about the fact that many people don't have access to vegetables or to good food, very simply. And I think chefs should speak, but should also go to those places. And I say that because during 6 years, I had an NGO, and we went to the poor suburbs to give workshops on organic food and on healthy food. And what we've learned is very important, is that in poor districts, people think they have to buy meat and fish for every meal, etc., because for them it's a social status which is very important. But when big chefs like you all, you go to them and explain how they can cook better with, and the fact that the price that they put in the meat could be put in vegetables, then it changed their mind. And only great chefs like you, they can do it. So I think this is the first action they can do. The other one is, to me, changing the criteria of what is. We are in a context of very high quality gastronomic, etc. I think the criteria of gastronomy should change. I think less sophistication. I'm sorry, yesterday I was here, and the food seemed really amazing. It was really amazing things. But I'm vegetarian, and I had to really to look for something to eat. It was quite difficult. But anyway, I think the organization, it was perfect. But I must say that too much sophistication. Now those aesthetic criteria, this sophistication should go elsewhere. And the criteria should be, where do our products come from, and short circuits, seasonality, etc. So this is very important. And the last thing I want to say is that the little farmers who try agroecology, which means more than organic, which means that you use biodiversity inside your farm, those farmers, they need the help of those big chefs, because sometimes their prices are a little bit high, but also they give a service. And if all the agriculture were like this, we would have less tax to pay, for example, to clean water. But when they start, and at the level where we are actually for the agriculture, they need the help of big chefs to put again free seeds and good old products, etc., in the market. So I think chefs really have a great role to play.
I would like to give the word after we give you the word to you. But Mauro, how would you influence the media? How would you deal with the producers so that what Lionel Astruc says becomes day-to-day reality?
Yes. So how I say, we are lucky to be in area who have really small farms. And we are on own farms who we grown all in permaculture, the way who you talk. I think the best way is to give the example of how you do and you work. But it's today, and I insist with that, it's not enough. It's not enough how one chef or 10 chefs works like this. We need to really move and insist, move really fast. It's not normal we continue to buy food who we know, because the first thing who is a chef is we learn to manipulate a raw product. And for manipulate a raw product, we need to know the raw product. And today the chef didn't take care about that. We don't take care about the product. We take care more how we look our food, how we look our dish, and
how to process.
And how is the main question is how is our product, because we manipulate products for alimentar, for
to
feed people. Yeah. So today, we are very fast away from this essential thing about how is a cooker. And I think is that the change in the gastronomy, the vision of how is our really work. And I think it's the best way to show up the medias and to show up the people and to insist with the other chef and to try to combine the other people to understand how is our essential of work.
Okay, thank you. And then just to elaborate on what you just said, Mrs. Shiva Vandana, how can we all together be a power of influence to help the chefs to convey this attention to the product through the media and through the population?
Yeah, I think first the urgency is so clearly identified by everyone. And there are two lessons we can learn from this urgency. One, all the wrong things that were done. And the problem of the universalization of bad food, which is behind the climate crisis, is a very recent acceleration. The exponential growth that you mentioned is only 20 years old when free trade, globalization, WTO made local, ecological, fair, illegal, and rewarded the unfair, the polluted, the degraded, the false price, and that became the global market. So 20 years of an error can be undone, and I think we should take Mr. Trump's help. For every time he shouts, we need to say, yes, we need to write new trade rules. And I think the chefs can be a very important player in rewriting the rules of trade so that they're fair, they're ecological, and address climate, biodiversity, and healthy eating. They're about local, because it was turned into a sin in WTO. It was called protectionism. We'd better protect the planet, otherwise we are dead. We'd better protect our health and our children, otherwise we are very sick. So protecting the planet and our health and good food is now a duty that needs to be recognized. And I think the chefs can play a role, and all of us can join hands in it. We've just done a new report. It's called The Future of Our Daily Bread, Regeneration or Collapse. And I wrote it because in the last month, every player who looked like the big driver of an inevitable direction of industrialization of agriculture and corporatization of agriculture is collapsing. In the last month, Bayer lost 20% because of one cancer case. One cancer case in US. They're spraying glyphosate all over Argentina. Hundreds of cancer cases, 10 times more in the soya region than in the normal area. We need to consolidate all of this. We need to consolidate the fact that right now, agriculture is being taken over by big finance. The Vanguards and the BlackRocks. BlackRock lost 30% last week. 30%. Because when you build everything on a bubble, the bubble must burst. And that's where chefs come in. Because you deal with real food, real quality, real taste, real people, real farmers. I've called it the resurgence of the real. And you are transformers of food to quality, to taste, to beauty, to consciousness. What is called the food industry, it is a food polluter and polluter of the planet. We should call them polluters. It is not an industry because nature gives us food, farmers give us food, all they do is pollute it and ruin it and destroy the planet and our health. And I think these 3 or 4 things, a charter of healthy planet, healthy people, is something, if the chefs brought it to the world, all those lovely politicians who come to your restaurants would have to listen.
Thank you. This is a touchy and burning subject. I would like to have some, not final words, this is a wrong term. I would like to have the next words from each of you because before we finish this session, starting with you, Chef Narizawa. Transforming this sense of urgency, this scary news that we can have in front of us into a message of hope and action. How would you deliver such a message, Chef Narizawa? And then every one of you will have the opportunity to give that message. And how can the media help contribute? Because having a voice is great, but having an amplifier of that voice to inject a message is even better. Chef Narizawa.
ポジティブにフューチャーに向けて未来に向けてもっとポジティブにどのようにこのメッセージを伝えていくべきなんでしょうか。
昨日も言ったんですけど、30年前とはシェフのまずこう役割というか責任が違っていると思います。
Like I said yesterday, our role and chef's responsibility has been changed over the last 30 years.
ナディアさん言ったようにこの本当に2、30年でのこのいろんな状況の悪化というのが本当に大きいと思います。
Yes, as she has mentioned that it is true that it's only 20 to 30 years that there's many things has been changed.
やっぱり僕たちが今こうやってメディアに出たり、それから有名になったりというのは僕たち別に、有名なそのテレビのスターになりたいわけではないです。
Like you see, like us, that we are now on the public, like in the media, we are on the TV shows. The purpose is not really because I just want to be popular or famous. It's not that.
これをいい方向にいかに利用するかが重要だと思います。
I think that we need to focus on how we can use this fame that we have, the opportunity to be in the public, like in the media. That is the most important part.
だから彼女が言ったように今僕たちの役割はその美しい話、いい話だけをするのではダメだと思います。
Yeah, just like she has mentioned, that it's no longer us talking beautiful things, like only just the surface. That's no longer the issue. We have to change that.
例えばですね、日本っていうと今食が非常に世界中で、日本の食が人気になっていると思います。
For example, like as you can see in Japan, it's getting very popular all over the world, the Japanese food.
ではその日本の料理で欠かせない醤油とか味噌が、きちんと作られているきちんとした小さな生産者が、きちんとしたその真実の大豆と、それからお米であったり、小麦粉ね、小麦でできている醤油や味噌がどれほどあるかといったら本当に数%しかありません。
As you know, one of the most important ingredients for Japanese cuisine is miso and shoyu, soja sauce. However, you probably don't know how much of the real good thing, like soya bean, as well as rice and very high quality flours, you have no idea how much percentage has been used correctly for this, creating these two major ingredients.
僕たちはそういうその真実の食材を作っている、ソイソースとか味噌とかそういったものを小さな作り手がきちんと作っている生産者を、応援して支えていく必要があります。
So our role as a chef, like publicly speaking to everybody that the soy sauce or miso that you see is not actually the good quality or great food. What we chef needs to do is to focus on those small producers who create it from scratch, that we need to talk about them. We need to encourage them to be more popular in the industry. So those way of discovering, introducing the real production is part of our responsibility now.
でもう一つだけ、
Another thing is,
今僕たちはこのガストロノミー、いわゆるその美味しさを追求する料理を作りながら、食べることがなくて死んでいっている人がこの地球上に同じ瞬間にいるんだということも考えなければいけないと思います。
another part, it's very important to understand that we talk a lot about gastronomy, like how we can create a gorgeous, great food. But at the same time, same moment, there was many people dying of hunger. I think we need to be highly aware of the fact and then continue our work.
Many thanks. Ms. Nada Lepes, your words of hope and action.
Yeah, okay. Wasn't exactly that, but what I think, what you said before, that going into the poor parts and teaching people how to use vegetables with the media attention that we have, that makes us better, makes us look better, and says how good we are, that make real change for what I think on scale and time pushing us. What I think is we have a moment that we unintentionally the market group ourselves like in the Michelin stars 50 best lists, 100 chefs that it's on the magazine. We are really small groups because how much are we? Like 2,000?
In the world, probably.
5,000 chefs around the world that are on lists, and he's in like 100 of those lists, and he's in 100 of those lists. I'm in 20 of those lists, but there's not so many. I think that gives us power. So as long as the government subsidize the cheap way of
Producing.
supplement the good soy sauce or sugars or like corn syrup instead of cane sugar, I don't know. As long as we are also about that. We are guardians, or we feel guardians of the good artisanal crafts that we find. Craft as the fishermen over there, or the honey that we can buy, or the good sources that he can have access to. But that's a privilege because we cook for rich people. That's what we do. We cook for rich people. And some cook for the 1%, but most of us do cook for that percent. But we have in a group, we don't realize yet the power that we have to really change things, so we should follow the money. We should know who buys who makes the decisions, who the food traders are. Those are the ones who really have the money. And then we should start looking at our sponsorships and be aware of that, start speaking out. Maybe when you are sponsored by, even there, speaking out of the way we don't agree that the trade is done around the world with food and politics around food. Because trade, grain trade, food trade, because it's grain. Grain feeds cattle and that because it's grain. Grain trade and politics are more intertwined than the general public thinks. So the call to action to people, to public opinion is listen to us. We're all together in this, and we all know. And then we take care of the craftsmanship around us, because that's a good thing, and we need to, because this doesn't pay. We don't live out of talking and making people aware. We don't live around. That doesn't give you, we're not rich. So we need to work and we need to cook for rich people to live. That's what we do. But I'm wrapping up, don't worry.
It's okay.
But I think that following the money on stuff opens your eyes a lot and can help you think ways of changing some politics and subsidize on food where you live or where you visit. Because me and Mauro, we come from Argentina. He lives here, but he has his family there. He has a son there. And we know the way that food is distributed and how food is produced there. It has nothing to do on the way that it's done in Europe or in some other places. So we produce a massive amount of soy that it's made to feed cattle, and people think that our soy is made to make soy sauce in China, which is not.
It feeds cattle, actually.
It feeds cattle, and the amount of soil that it takes to feed cattle to make people believe that to eat meat it's a good thing, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But I think we need to talk straight to each other and fight, be more aggressive than we are. That's one side, and take care of the craftsmanship around us.
Okay, thank you very much. Lionel, last truc. It's a very popular subject, actually, and everyone has to do with that. Your 2 words,
Yeah.
if I may say so, of
Very
hope
short.
and action.
I think the actions should be very simple, because we, as it was said, we don't have time. There is not only climate change, there is also a collapse of biodiversity in the sea, in the forests, and in the soil. And all those 3 things interact. So it's a big collapse. So I think very, very simple thing is reducing the proteins, the animal proteins in our food, reducing meat. This is very important. I think as those cookers are very high-level cookers, they should also take high-level commitments. And this is what is very important, is showing the way. And finally, I think, Narda, I think you are true about big shifts going to suburbs. I've never been there with big shifts, but sometime big shifts, but very humble, were financing our actions and giving us very useful advices. And something you should know is that we were very welcome there. They want to cook again. That's great. I think it's very important. Since 2 generations, those people and many, many people have lost the knowledge around cooking. And so the mothers there, they were welcoming us with a lot of energy, and cooking with them was so nice. And they were so happy to cook again the plates they were loving in their childhood.
Okay, find a better way to cook. Mauro, your last words of hope in action? And you'll have the final.
Yes, it's you know, it's hard, but I have 2 wonderful child, so I tried always to find the good vision of the things. And I can talk is about how I see the soil of our farms in here in Menton, where just few months after we start to work in permaculture, now 2 years, 3 years, is the nature is something who really is extraordinary. The power of the nature is so nice, and really we have the time. We have time to change, but if we really know, like Narda say, how where is our enemy, no? Or
where's the enemy? Yeah.
Where is the enemy? Because it's a war and it's a fight, and we know to know that the new generations need to know that, need to know we can continue with the society who we build. I build every day, and so I'm extremely worried about that. No?
Okay.
So, but we have a nice message. Is the nature can
leave and
react
and work
very,
again and
very, very fast.
Miss Shiva Vandana, your last words of hope and action. No, last words. Your first words of hope and action.
Well, I totally go with Mauro that we have to follow nature. That's the part that was forgotten. Even though the whole life depends on nature, we were made to believe it comes from oil, it comes from finance, it comes from the banks. And this new report, which you all can download from Seed Freedom, the website of Seed Freedom, it's called The Future of Our Daily Bread, Regeneration or Collapse. It has actually, we worked very hard to see who's driving the shift. And this is the pattern, that you extract from the earth, you extract from the farmer, you extract food from the poor. That's why 1 billion people are hungry. You extract nutrition from food. That's why 2 billion people are sick with imbalanced diets. And it's an inverted pyramid. And the players are right there. They're not even agribusiness. They're Microsoft, BlackRock, owning all the familiar chemical companies, the Walmarts and the Amazons, and the Cargills and the Conagras. That's on page 6 if you go.
Okay,
but our vision is based on our work for 30 years. We find that protecting biodiversity, which includes the trees and the forests, but the biodiversity in the soil, that we can regenerate the soil with the earth so fast that 0.5% organic matter in the soil can add 80,000 liters of water a day. That's the answer to the water crisis. It's the answer to desertification. I noticed there's a stall there which says circular economy. Nature works in cycles. She doesn't work through linear extraction, otherwise there wouldn't be an earth. She gives back. We pump out carbon dioxide and the trees give us oxygen. That circular economy is nature's economy. That circular economy is what we have to build. And what we are doing in Navdanya is making the circular economies circles of circles of circles in ever expanding horizontality. This is 150 years of Gandhi birth. And he said, life will not be a pyramid with the apex sustained by the bottom, till at last the whole becomes one life composed of individuals, never aggressive in their arrogance, but ever humble, sharing the majesty of the oceanic circle of which they are an integral part. Chefs have kept alive the idea and reality of good food in times when we were made to believe that bad food is all that people can get, through unfair agreements, false prices, and a fake science to add to it. I think now chefs can be the leaders of a transition, that the earth gives good food. We all have a right to share it. We have a duty to share it. And we will create future food economies that good food that the chefs have kept alive is on everyone's table. The creative means through which we spread this message is, of course, there. And that's why we don't have to despair, because 10 years might look horrible if the world is ending, but 10 years to regenerate the planet is a long time. Our 10-year-old kids will be 20-year-old leaders.
Many thanks. This is, and you can count on media, I tell you, and we'll do our best to convey the message that we need to serve nature instead of using it. Many thanks. I will invite you to come here for the photograph, official photography of this roundtable. Thank you very much in the public to have gone with us. Important topic.